3 months after the battle, Earth began to rebuild. The Valkyren had pulled all their forces out of human space. Their fleet was needed elsewhere. Uprisings were happening on the worlds they had conquered. Humanity's desperate fight had sparked a galactic revolution. Admiral Taehyung, now promoted to Supreme Commander of all human military forces, stood in the ruins of Seoul. Around him, construction crews worked to rebuild the city. The bunker that had been his command center during the battle was being turned into a memorial. General Do-hyun joined him on the rubble. Final casualty reports came in. 3.2 billion dead. 18 major cities completely destroyed. It will take us a generation just to get our population back to normal. And the fleet? 23 ships. We are building more, but it will be years before we have even half of what we had before. Taehyung nodded slowly. The price had been almost too much to bear. But humanity had survived. That was what mattered. On Mars, where rebuilding was beginning, Captain Sungmin oversaw the construction of a massive monument. It would have the names of every human who died in the war carved into stone. The list would cover 50 square kilometers. At the top, in letters 3 meters high, were the words, "They charged into battle." Hyeri had been promoted to wing commander. She now led training for new pilots. The academy was full of recruits, young people who had witnessed the war and were determined to make sure humanity never faced extinction again. Among her cadets was Junho, now 17. He had survived the ground war and enlisted the day he turned old enough. He flew with a picture of his sister Jiwon attached to his control panel. In the rebuilt Seoul Command Center, Admiral Taehyung hosted representatives from 6 different alien species. The Teluvians had been joined by others, races that had broken free from Valkyren control and now wanted to form a defensive alliance. Diplomat Yoonji, who had felt useless during the war, now found herself at the center of humanity's diplomatic efforts. She addressed the assembled aliens. For too long, the Valkyren Dominion has terrorized the galaxy through fear. They counted on species surrendering without a fight. But humanity taught them and all of you that resistance is possible. Today, we make official what began in the fires of battle, the Free Species Coalition. The treaty was signed on a hull plate from the destroyed Defiance. The metal had been recovered from space and preserved as a sacred relic. Scientist Minji, now head of humanity's Advanced Weapons Division, shared technology with coalition members. The Prometheus Protocol was improved and refined. Other species contributed their own technologies. Together, they were building a force that could stand against the Dominion. 1 year after the battle, a ceremony was held in Earth orbit. The 23 surviving warships formed an honor guard around a new monument, a massive station built from the wreckage of both human and Valkyren ships. At its center was a museum. It displayed artifacts from the war. Commander Hyunwoo's command chair, Jiwon's pilot helmet, the personal recordings of the 87 Prometheus pilots, Captain Yuna's last words, preserved forever. Admiral Taehyung gave the dedication speech to representatives from dozens of worlds. We stand here today not to celebrate war, but to remember sacrifice. 3.2 billion humans died, tens of thousands more from allied species. Every person who fell did so fighting for a simple idea, that freedom is worth dying for. The Valkyren gave us an ultimatum, surrender or face extinction. We chose neither. We chose to fight even when defeat seemed certain. We chose to stand when the galaxy expected us to kneel. History will record this as the day humanity joined the galactic community. But we know the truth. This was the day humanity reminded the galaxy what it means to be free. When the final hour struck, we charged into battle, and we are still standing. In the crowd, Sergeant Daehyun stood at attention. His uniform had medals he never expected to receive. Beside him, young Junho wore a cadet's uniform, preparing to carry his sister's legacy forward. Captain Sungmin commanded one of the new battleships being built. It was named the Defiance II, in honor of the ship that had changed everything. Yeri led a flyby of fighters over Earth. They flew in missing man formation, honoring those who had fallen. The new fighters were built with advanced technology from coalition partners. On distant worlds, on alien ships, and in rebuilt human colonies, people looked up at the stars with new understanding. Humanity had faced its final hour and emerged transformed. Not victorious, the cost was too high for that word, but unbroken. The war was not over. The Valkyren Dominion still existed, weakened but not defeated. New challenges would come that would test humanity again. But when that time came, the galaxy would remember what humans did when faced with impossible odds. They would remember that when the final hour struck, humanity charged into battle, and they would know better than to ever count humans out again. 10 years later, in a classroom on Mars, a teacher named Minseo taught the next generation about the war. She was the same woman who had once held her daughter in a Tokyo bunker, singing songs to keep the child calm. "Can anyone tell me what the Battle of Earth taught us?" she asked her students. A young girl raised her hand. "That we should never give up?" Minseo smiled. "Partly. But more importantly, it taught us that sacrifice has meaning when it is for something greater than yourself. Commander Hyunwoo, Pilot Jiwon, Captain Yuna, and 3 billion others died so that we could stand here today, free. They charged into battle knowing they probably would not survive. And because they did, humanity survived." The student thought about this. Are the Valkyries still out there? Yes, and one day we might face them again. But when we do, we will not face them alone. And we will not be the same species we were. We have grown, we have learned, and we have taught the galaxy something important. What is that? Minseo looked out the window at the stars. New human and coalition ships patrolled there, keeping watch. That some species would rather die on their feet than live on their knees. And that when you back humans into a corner, they do not surrender. She paused, letting the words sink in. They charge. Outside the classroom, construction continued in the shipyards of Mars. Bigger ships, better weapons, stronger alliances. Humanity had learned its lesson. When the final hour strikes, you had better be ready to fight. And humanity would be ready. Always. In the memorial station orbiting Earth, visitors from 100 worlds came to see the artifacts of humanity's stand. They read the names of the fallen. They listened to the recordings. They learned about the species that refused to surrender. Young Junho, now a lieutenant, sometimes gave tours to visiting dignitaries. He would stand before his sister's helmet and tell her story, how she volunteered for a suicide mission, how she flew into the heart of an enemy ship and tore it apart from within. "My sister taught me what it means to be human," he would say. "It is not about being fearless. It is about being terrified and doing what needs to be done anyway. It is about looking at impossible odds and saying, 'Not today.'" The galaxy had learned this lesson well. Across dozens of worlds, formerly enslaved species stood free because humanity had shown them how. The Valkyrian dominion was in retreat, its empire crumbling as world after world rose up in rebellion. And at the center of it all, on a scarred but unbowed Earth, humanity rebuilt. They built monuments to the fallen. They built ships to defend the free. They built alliances that would ensure no species ever stood alone again. Because when the final hour struck, humanity had charged into battle, and the galaxy would never be the same. The death of Lord Vakros created immediate chaos in the Valkyrian fleet. Without their supreme commander, the ship captains began arguing about who should lead. Old rivalries came back to life. The fleet was in disarray. Captain Sungmin saw the opportunity. "All ships, resume attack. Hit them while they are confused." The remaining human fleet, now down to 71 ships, threw themselves back into battle with renewed fury. The sacrifice of the Defiance had bought them a chance. Fighter ace Hyeri, somehow still alive despite everything, led a strike on a Valkyrian carrier that had dropped its shields during the confusion. "Squadron, follow me." "For Commander Hyunwoo." "For the Defiance." Her pilots echoed. On Earth, the ground war had reached a critical point. Valkyrian forces had pushed deep into every continent. But without clear support from space due to the fleet's chaos, they found themselves cut off and isolated. Sergeant Daehyun's squad had been reduced to 4 soldiers, but they had linked up with other survivors. Now a ragtag force of 200 Marines and militia held a defensive line in Beijing's ruins. "They are coming again," someone shouted. Valkyrian war machines appeared over the rubble, their weapons glowing. But before they could fire, homemade explosives detonated beneath them. The defenders had spent hours planting improvised mines. Young Junho, covered in dust and blood, worked frantically to reload his rifle. He had killed 3 alien soldiers already. He felt numb, moving on pure survival instinct. An alien warrior charged at him. Time seemed to slow. Juno brought up his rifle and fired. The shot went wide. The Valkyrian raised its weapon for a killing blow. A burst of gunfire tore through the alien from the side. Sergeant Daehyun appeared, grabbing Junho and pulling him to cover. "Stay focused, kid. The second you freeze is the second you die." In orbit, the human fleet was winning, but barely. The Valkyries still had more ships, but their confusion was costing them dearly. Ship after ship fell to coordinated human attacks. Captain Sungmin's retribution had taken severe damage but kept fighting. Half his crew was dead. Life support was failing. But they stayed in the fight. "Sir, we are detecting new contacts," his sensor officer reported. "Jump signatures. Hundreds of them." Sungmin's heart sank. Reinforcements. The Valkyrie had called for help. But then the identification tags registered. These were not Valkyrie ships. Across every human channel, a message came through. "Human vessels, this is the Teluvian Coalition fleet. We have been monitoring your battle. What you call sacrifice, we call courage. You have inspired something the galaxy has not seen in thousands of years, resistance. We are here to help." 1,200 alien ships of various designs appeared out of jump space. They positioned themselves alongside the battered human fleet. In the Seoul bunker, Admiral Tae-hyung stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The Teluvians were one of the species the Valkyrie had conquered decades ago. They had risen up, stolen their ships, and come to help humanity. General Doyun laughed in shock. "We started a revolution. More like we reminded the galaxy what freedom looks like," scientist Minji said quietly. The tide of battle shifted dramatically. The Teluvian ships added enough firepower to balance the fight. More importantly, their arrival shattered Valkyrie morale. For 300 years, the Valkyrie dominion had been unstoppable. No species had ever truly fought back. Now watching humans sacrifice themselves again and again, and inspiring others to rise up, the Valkyrie fleet began to break. The battle raged for another 18 hours. By its end, the Valkyrie fleet had been reduced to 800 ships. They pulled back beyond lunar orbit, regrouping and retreating. Humanity and its new Teluvian allies had suffered terrible losses. Of 71 human ships, only 23 remained. The Teluvians had lost half their fleet, but they had held the line. On Earth, the ground war reached a stalemate. Valkyrie forces controlled about 30% of the planet's surface, but without control of space, they could not push further. In Beijing's ruins, Sergeant Daehyun looked at what remained of his unit. Of the 200 who had held this position, 41 survived. Young Junho sat among them, staring at his blood-stained hands. "You did good, kid," Daehyun said quietly. "Your sister would be proud." "Does it ever stop?" Junho asked. "The shaking? The fear? No, but you learn to fight through it. That is what makes us human. We are terrified, but we fight anyway." In orbit, Captain Sungmin met with the Teluvian fleet commander Zelnora via holographic link. The alien looked like a large insect, but her voice was warm. "Your species is either the bravest or the most insane we have ever encountered," Zelnora said. "Possibly both," Sungmin smiled grimly. "We prefer to think of it as stubborn. Whatever you call it, it worked. The Valkyrie are withdrawing. They have never faced this kind of resistance before. You taught them something they have not felt in centuries. Fear." "At a terrible price," Sungmin said, looking at the casualty reports. "Over 3 billion humans dead. 60% of Earth's surface devastated. The fleet reduced to a handful of ships." "Yes," Zelnora acknowledged. "But you survived. And more importantly, you proved the Valkyrie can be beaten. That message will spread across the galaxy. Every enslaved species will hear how humanity charged into impossible odds and survived." "We have not won yet," Sungmin cautioned. "No. But you have done something more important. You have given the galaxy hope." Across the human fleet, exhausted crews began to realize what had happened. They had survived. Against all odds, against a force that should have destroyed them completely, they had survived. In the Seoul bunker, Admiral Tae-hyung allowed himself a moment of relief. The cost had been almost unbearable, but humanity still existed. Earth still stood. He made a broadcast to all surviving humans. "To everyone who fought, who sacrificed, who refused to surrender, you saved our species today. 3 billion of our brothers and sisters are gone. We will mourn them. We will remember them, but we will also honor them by surviving, by rebuilding, by ensuring their sacrifice meant something." The Valkyrie thought they could break us with overwhelming force. They were wrong. They learned today that humanity does not break. We bend, we bleed, we suffer terrible losses, but we do not break. The war is not over. The Valkyren still exist, but they have learned to fear us. And across the galaxy, other enslaved species are watching. They saw what we did. They saw that resistance is possible. We charged into our final hour and we are still standing. That is victory enough for today. On a damaged destroyer limping back to Earth, a young ensign asked his captain a question. "Sir, do you think they will come back?" The captain looked out at the stars. "Maybe, probably, but when they do, we will be ready. And we will not be alone." Humanity had survived its darkest hour. The price had been devastating. But they had done something no other species had done. They had made the Valkyren bleed. They had made them retreat. And they had inspired a galaxy to remember what freedom meant. The final hour had struck. Humanity had charged into battle, and humanity was still here. 16 hours into the battle, the human fleet was broken. 300 ships had become 97. Earth's cities burned. More than 2 billion people were dead, but the Valkyren had suffered too. Their 6,000 ships were now 4,300. For the first time in their history of conquest, they had lost more than 1,000 vessels in a single battle. Lord Vakros commanded from his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. He studied the tactical displays with growing worry. These humans should have surrendered by now. Instead, they fought like cornered animals. "My lord," his tactical officer reported, "the humans are forming up for another attack. Their flagship is leading a charge toward our center." Vakros made a decision. "Let them come. Focus all fire on that ship. I want to break their spirit by killing their leader." On the bridge of the Defiance, Commander Hyunwoo knew exactly what the aliens would do. The Valkyren would focus everything on the flagship. That was the point. "All ships, this is Defiance Actual. Execute final protocol. We are the bait. Make your attacks count." Behind the Valkyren lines, 60 ships that had appeared dead suddenly came back to life. They had been playing dead, saving power for one massive surprise attack. Scientist Minji's experimental plan was working. Captain Sungmin aboard the Retribution led them. "All ships, full power to weapons. Target their command ships. Fire everything." The rear of the Valkyren fleet disintegrated under the surprise assault. 30 Valkyren command vessels were destroyed in the opening moments. While the fleet battled in space, the Valkyren launched ground forces. Massive dropships descended through the burning atmosphere, targeting the cities humanity had tried to protect. General Do-hyun coordinated the defense from his command post. "All units, enemy landing in Sector 7. Heavy armor incoming." In the ruins of Beijing, Sergeant Daehyun led a squad of Marines against Valkyren shock troops. The aliens were bigger, stronger, and had better weapons. But the humans fought with desperate courage. "Rockets on the walker," Daehyun screamed, taking cover as plasma fire superheated the air around him. Private Soman fired an anti-tank missile at the towering war machine. It hit, but the alien walker's shields absorbed the blast. Return fire cut through their position. Half of Daehyun's squad died in seconds. "Fall back. Fall back." He dragged Somin behind a collapsed building as more alien troops advanced. They were losing. Everywhere on Earth, human forces were being pushed back by superior firepower. In the Soul Bunker, young Junho made a decision. He was 16, too young to be a soldier. But nothing mattered anymore except fighting. He grabbed a rifle from a supply room and joined the militia forming up to defend the command center. An officer tried to stop him. "Son, you are too young." "My sister died in space today," Junho said. His voice was flat and empty. "I am old enough to fight." Admiral Tae-hyung watched the tactical displays with the calm of a man who knew he was about to die. Earth was falling. The fleet was broken. But he still had one card to play. "Open a channel to all Valkyren forces," he commanded. Diplomat Yoonji looked at him in shock. "Admiral, what are you doing?" "Trust me." He waited for confirmation, then spoke. "Lord Vakros of the Valkyren Dominion, this is Fleet Admiral Tae-hyung of the United Nations Space Command. I offer you unconditional surrender." On the Defiance, Commander Hyunwoo jumped to his feet. "What?" Across every human channel, shock and outrage erupted, but Tae-hyung continued speaking. "However, I have conditions. A formal surrender ceremony must be conducted aboard my flagship, the Defiance, with you personally accepting humanity's submission. It is the only way to prevent my forces from fighting to mutual annihilation." Kyung-min stared in disbelief. "He is inviting them onto the Defiance?" Hyunwoo's eyes went wide with sudden understanding. "He is not surrendering. He is..." On the Valkyrin flagship, Lord Vakros considered the offer. His forces had the advantage, but the humans had proven costly to defeat. A clean surrender would save Valkyrin lives and establish him as the conqueror of humanity. His pride demanded he accept. Very well, human. I will come to your ship to accept your surrender. You have 1 hour to cease all hostilities. Taehyung's face stayed calm. Acknowledged. All human forces cease fire. All ships stand down. As the channel closed, he turned to everyone in the command center. Evacuate everyone, get to the deepest shelters and seal them. Admiral, what are you planning? Do-hyun demanded. Taehyung smiled grimly. The Defiance is equipped with a prototype antimatter reactor. If the containment fails catastrophically, he let the meaning hang in the air. Yoonji gasped. You are going to blow up the ship with Vakros aboard, along with his command staff and their flagship. We cannot win this war, but we can cut off the head of their fleet and give whoever comes next a fighting chance. General Do-hyun saluted. It has been an honor, Admiral. The honor was mine, now go. Make sure humanity survives to fight another day. As the command center evacuated, Taehyung sent one final message to Commander Hyunwoo. Commander, you know what needs to be done. I am sorry it has to be your ship. Hyunwoo sat in his command chair, hands gripping the armrests. Around him, his crew worked at their stations, unaware of what was coming. Crew of the Defiance, he said quietly. I am ordering a full evacuation. We have 30 minutes. Get to the escape pods. That is an order. Kyungmin looked up. Sir, what about you? I am the captain. I stay with my ship. Then so do I, Kyungmin said firmly. Around the bridge, the senior staff nodded in agreement. Hyunwoo wanted to argue, but he saw the determination in their eyes. These were his people. They had followed him through 3 years of hell. If they chose to stay for the end, he would not dishonor them by refusing. Very well. Clear the ship of all non-essential personnel. Those who wish to stay may stay. In the end, 63 crew members remained aboard the Defiance. Engineers who wanted to ensure the reactor detonation would work. Marines who refused to abandon their posts. And a bridge crew who had served together so long they felt like family. As Valkyrin shuttles approached carrying Lord Vakros and his entourage, Hyunwoo opened a final ship-wide channel. To those who stayed, you have given humanity the greatest gift imaginable. Your sacrifice today will echo across the ages. When our species tells the story of this war, they will speak your names with reverence. You are the best of us. The Valkyrin shuttle docked. Lord Vakros and his honor guard boarded, expecting to see humans on their knees. Instead, they found Commander Hyunwoo standing at attention on the bridge, surrounded by his crew. Welcome aboard, Lord Vakros, Hyunwoo said calmly. I am afraid I have bad news. There will be no surrender today. Vakros's eyes widened in rage. What treachery is this? Not treachery, sacrifice. Hyunwoo nodded to his chief engineer. Now, the antimatter containment failed. For a microsecond, the Defiance became a star. The blast consumed the ship, Lord Vakros, his honor guard, and reached out to engulf the nearby Valkyrin flagship. In the Sol bunker, Admiral Taehyung watched the detonation on the tactical display. The Defiance and the Eternal Dominion vanished in white-hot fury. He closed his eyes. Godspeed, Commander. The attack began 47 hours before the Valkyrin deadline. Humanity struck first. 30 destroyers came out from hiding behind the moon. Their engines burned bright as they raced toward the alien fleet. The Valkyrin were not ready. They had thought the humans would spend their last hours in fear. They were wrong. All ships execute Protocol Hammer. Admiral Taehyung commanded from his underground bunker. The human fleet split into 3 groups. Commander Hyunwoo led the Defiance and the main force straight toward the center of the Valkyrin fleet. Captain Sungmin took his cruiser Retribution and attacked from the left side. Captain Yuna led the carrier group and launched every fighter they had at the right side. The Valkyrin responded with massive firepower. Their plasma cannons could melt through a ship's armor in seconds. The human ship Vigilant took a direct hit. Half the crew died instantly when the air rushed out into space, but the human ships kept coming. Evasive Pattern Delta, Hyunwoo ordered as energy beams crossed through space around the Defiance. A new tactical officer named Kyungmin worked frantically to control the ship's defense systems. Hyeri led her fighter squadron through the Valkyrin defensive line. Her tiny fighter was only 10 meters long. One hit would vaporize her. Stay close. Fire on my mark. Plasma fire and explosions filled the space around them. Mark. 43 fighters released their missiles at the same time. Nuclear warhead streaked toward a Valkyrie carrier. 16 missiles hit their target. The alien carrier broke apart in a silent explosion of fire. Yeri's squadron cheered, but their celebration was short. The Valkyries sent their own fighters, sleek alien craft that outnumbered the humans 5-1. Within minutes, half of Yeri's squadron was destroyed. Prometheus wings, you are go for launch, Hyunwoo transmitted. His voice was heavy with the weight of what he was ordering. 87 pilots powered up their modified fighters. These were not normal combat ships. They were bombs with engines. Jump drives that would tear a hole in space itself. Ji-won felt her heart pounding as her fighter launched into the chaos of battle. Around her, the other Prometheus pilots formed up. Through her window, she could see the Valkyrie dreadnought Worldbreaker. It was 4 kilometers long and covered in weapons. All spears, pick your targets and go on my mark, the wing commander said. It has been an honor flying with you. Ji-won locked onto her target, a heavy cruiser positioned above North America. She thought of her younger brother Junho, safe in a bunker somewhere. She thought of the life she would never have. She thought of all the humans who would die if she failed. Spear 24, locked and ready. One by one, the other pilots confirmed they were ready. Execute. 87 ships activated their jump drives at the same time. Space itself seemed to scream. Reality bent and twisted. Ji-won's fighter disappeared and reappeared inside the cruiser's shields. Her jump drive was already overloading. For one frozen moment, she could see through the ship's armor. She could see alien crew members turning in confusion. The quantum rupture detonated. The Valkyrie cruiser did not explode. It simply stopped existing. Space-time collapsed inward, then expanded violently. The shockwave hit 2 nearby destroyers and flipped them end over end. Across the battlefield, 86 more flowers of destruction bloomed. When the light faded, 43 Valkyrie ships were gone. Another 21 were crippled and drifting. On the bridge of the Defiance, Kyungmin stared at the tactical display in shock. Sir, it worked. The Prometheus protocol actually worked. Hyunwoo stood rigid. He had just watched 87 of his people die. Noted in the log, 87 heroes gave humanity a chance. Now we honor them by not wasting it. The Valkyrie response was immediate and cruel. Their fleet commander, Lord Vakros, sent a single message. You will suffer for this. The massive dreadnoughts turned their guns toward Earth. Plasma beams lanced down through the atmosphere. Each beam carried enough energy to vaporize city blocks. Rio de Janeiro was first to burn, then Mumbai, then Melbourne. In the Seoul Command Center, General Do-hyun watched the video feeds with helpless rage. They are targeting civilians. I know, Tae-hyung said grimly. But if we stop attacking to defend, they will destroy the fleet. We have to keep pressing forward. More people are dying every second. And if we lose here, everyone dies. Tae-hyung slammed his fist on the console. Keep attacking! In space, the human fleet paid its own price. The destroyer Hammer was cut in half by a plasma beam. The cruiser Vengeance lost its engines and drifted helplessly into enemy fire. 400 crew members died in seconds. Captain Yuna's carrier Last Hope took catastrophic damage when alien bombers breached the hangar bay. Fire ripped through the ship. Alarms screamed throughout the vessel. Evacuate non-essential personnel, Yuna commanded. Engineering, I need engines. Engines are gone, Captain, came the response. We are dead in space. Yuna looked at her crew. These young men and women trusted her. She made her decision. All hands, this is the captain. Abandon ship. Get to the escape pods now. Captain, you need to evacuate too. Her second-in-command, Ji-hoon, protested. Someone has to pilot her, and the ship still has one more fight left. Yuna smiled sadly. Make sure they remember the Last Hope went down fighting. As the crew evacuated, Yuna locked herself at the controls. She fired every thruster the dying ship had, pointing the carrier's broken nose toward the nearest Valkyrie dreadnought. With no main engines, she used small maneuvering thrusters to build up speed. It was slow, but it would work. The Valkyrie noticed too late. By the time they tried to stop her, the Last Hope was already committed. Yuna's last words echoed across the fleet channel. For the ones we could not save. The carrier slammed into the dreadnought at 17 kilometers per second. Both ships vanished in a massive fireball. On Earth, in a bunker in Seoul, a teenager named Junho listened to the battle reports. Tears streamed down his face. His sister Ji-won had been one of the Prometheus pilots. Now she was gone. just one of thousands dying in space above. But even through his grief, he felt something else. Pride. Humanity was not going quietly. They were fighting back with everything they had. Above, the battle raged on. The Valkyren had superior numbers and technology, but humanity had something they did not. A willingness to sacrifice everything for survival. The question was, would it be enough? The alien ships filled the sky above Earth. There were so many that they blocked out the stars. 6,000 warships, all belonging to the Valkyren Dominion. They had come to make humanity surrender or die. Yun-Woo stood on the bridge of his ship, the Defiance. He was the commander, and he had seen 3 years of war. His face looked tired. Behind him, Ji-won worked at her station. Her hands moved quickly across the controls, but they shook just a little. She was scared, but she would not show it. "Sir, the alien ships are getting closer," Ji-won said. "If they fire their big guns, our cities will burn." Hyun-Woo nodded. He knew this already. The Valkyren had given humanity 3 days to surrender. Only 2 days were left now. The aliens had conquered 47 other species before humans. Every single one of them had given up without much of a fight. But humans were different. Deep underground in Seoul, Admiral Tae-hyung gathered the leaders of humanity. Around the table sat Minji, the scientist. Next to her was Do-hyun, the general who commanded all the soldiers on Earth. Yoonji was there too. She had tried to make peace with the aliens for months, but they had only laughed at her. "We have nothing left," Yoonji said. Her voice was quiet and sad. "Every colony we built on other planets is gone. Mars, Europa, Titan, all captured. Earth stands alone." Taehyung put his hands on the table. He was an old man, but his eyes were still strong. "Then we fight here. We moved as many people as we could to the safe bunkers in the south. The rest are counting on us." Minji spoke up. "I have something that might help. We call it the Prometheus Project. We found a way to turn our ships into weapons. A ship can jump right inside an enemy vessel and explode, but the pilot cannot escape. It is a one-way trip." Everyone in the room became quiet. Do-hyun finally spoke. "So we invented a better way to die. That sounds like something humans would do." Taehyung looked at each person. "Send out the message. Ask for volunteers." The message went to every ship in the human fleet. On the destroyer, Indomitable, a young pilot named Seojun read it 3 times. He was only 24 years old. His hands shook as he pressed the button to volunteer. In the next room, an older pilot named Young-soo did the same without hesitation. He had lost his whole family when the aliens destroyed the colony on Proxima Centauri. This was his chance to make his death mean something. On the carrier Last Hope, Yeri gathered her squadron of fighter pilots. "They want volunteers for a suicide mission. I am going. Anyone who wants to leave can leave. No shame in it." Not one pilot moved. 43 men and women stood ready to become living weapons. Back on the Defiance, Ji-won came to speak with Commander Hyun-Woo in private. "Sir, I want to fly one of the Prometheus ships." Hyun-Woo turned quickly. "No, I need you here on the bridge. With respect, Commander, you need me to fly. I have more flight hours than anyone in the fleet. If this is going to work, you need your best pilots." They looked at each other for a long moment. Hyun-Woo saw the fire in her eyes. The same fire he had seen when she first joined his crew 6 years ago. He nodded slowly. "Make it count, Ji-won." The Valkyren deadline was getting closer. 50 hours left. All across Earth and in the human fleet, people prepared to die. In the deep shelters of Tokyo, a woman named Minseo held her young daughter. She sang soft songs to help the little girl sleep. On the Defiance, an engineer named Junho worked all night to install the Prometheus systems. Tears ran down his face as he worked, but his hands never stopped. Admiral Tae-hyung made one last speech to all of humanity. His words went to every person on Earth and in the fleet. To every human who can hear me, on Earth, in the fleet, or hiding in the colonies, the Valkyren think they have already won. They think we will surrender because they have more ships and more weapons. They studied 47 species before us. Every single one gave up when the aliens threatened them. But they do not understand us. They do not know that humanity's greatest strength is not our technology. It is our refusal to go quietly into the dark. They do not know that we have always been a species that fights back when cornered. They do not know about all the times in our history when a few brave humans stood against impossible odds and changed everything. Tomorrow, when the final hour comes, we are going to teach them what it means to fight humanity. We are going to show them that some species would rather burn than bow. Even if we fall, even if Earth becomes nothing but ashes, the universe will remember. They will remember that humanity died on its feet, not on its knees. For every human who came before us and everyone who might come after, we stand. When the speech ended, all 300 human ships powered up their weapons. In the hangars, fighters were armed and ready. In the Prometheus Bay, 87 pilots climbed into ships that would become their coffins. Jiwan put on her helmet and checked all her systems one last time. Through the radio, she heard Hyunwoo's voice. All Prometheus pilots, you will be called Spear 1 through Spear 87. When you attack together. Make every one of you count. Copy that, sir, Jiwan said. Spear 24, ready to fly. On the bridge, Hyunwoo watched the countdown timer. 48 hours until the Valkyrie ultimatum ended. But humanity was not going to wait for them. All ships, he commanded. Battle stations. We attack in 1 hour. If we are going to die, we die at a time we choose, not them. Every ship in the fleet answered back with one voice. For Earth. For humanity. In a bunker somewhere on Earth, Jiwan's younger brother Junho listened to the communications. He was only 16 years old. He knew his sister was about to fly into battle. He knew she would probably not come back. But he also felt proud. Humanity was not going to surrender. They were going to fight with everything they had. In space, the Valkyrie fleet waited. They expected the humans to spend their last hours in fear and despair. They expected messages begging for mercy. They expected surrender. They did not expect what was coming. Humanity had made its choice. They would charge into battle, even against impossible odds. They would show the galaxy what it meant to be human. They would prove that some things were worth dying for. The final hour was coming, and when it struck, humanity would be ready.